Yo, hi. Hi, beautiful people. So if this is your first time in here, my name is Celeste. I'm a therapist from Boston. And I have this really dope podcast where I come on and I get to talk to people who are doing things to empower other people. And Happy New Year. Actually, we're in 2022. But also, like, outside of like talking to people that are empowering others, and I have over 300 episodes out right now where you can work on shifting your thought process. And they're on YouTube. They're on all audio podcasting platforms. So I have that. But then I also get to have dialogue with Jeff, who I'm going to add to the stream. And I'm going to have him introduce himself to you all. Hi, Jeff.
Hey, it's me, Jeff. Good to see you.
Can you introduce yourself to my audience?
Hey, I'm Jeff Rogers. I'm a executive coach, facilitator, and I do a monthly relationship advice show with Celeste the Therapist. So that's who I am and what I do.
He doesn't, I mean, you don't sound excited about working with me, but I don't think I'm that
This
bad.
is the
Hi, Mimi.
highlight of my I can't wait to do it and hear these people's issues.
All right. Well, I just hope your affect is not because of me. It's just who you are.
No, Celeste.
Okay.
I love you so much.
I didn't make you say that, right?
Nope, you did not. I'm not blinking out Morse code that says I'm being tortured.
Okay, good. So I have a lot of questions. I'm going to get through some of them, not all of them, because we haven't come on last month. And so people have been sending me questions. So I want to like jump right into it. And if this is your first time in my podcast, just so you're clear, Jeff and I'm not your therapist. Jeff is not your coach. And this is more of a way for you to like shift your thought process. And, you know, you take what you can from it and leave what you can't. I am a firm believer that I don't want like socioeconomic status to be the reason why people don't get what they need out of life. And I do know that resources are like hard, especially during these times. And so if you follow me on social media, it's clear that I'm very passionate about helping people kind of see their power. I'll start with this screenshot. Somebody sent this to me and asked me to address this. Why do you, it's not bad. So I'll read it for the audio listeners and for people that are listening to me on audio. Can y'all just subscribe on YouTube, please? I'm trying to get like 1,000. I'm at 560. So hook a sister up with a little subscribe. You know what I'm saying? And like every now and then. Okay, for my audio listeners, somebody sent me the screenshot and asked me to address it. And it's a tweet. Yeah, a tweet. And it says, being scared to ask for what you need is a trauma response. And then somebody responded and said, a trauma response to what? I need to know because I never understood and still don't understand why I'd be scared to ask for what I need. I thought it was because I hate rejection, but it's something deeper. Gotta be, because I literally be frightened, and the person like capitalized frightened. Do you want to start with this?
Sure. Well,
do you need me to leave it up?
I don't.
Okay.
So
that's
first of all,
so smart.
Oh yeah, that's why. Let's decode what a trauma response is, right? So a trauma response, the idea is, right? Trauma is, when something traumatic happens to you, it's something that is so painful or scary that it's burned in your memory.
Yeah.
Right. As an easy example, a lot of people that say, well, I'm afraid of dogs. And you'll say, why? And they say, when I was little, the dog bit me. And now I flinch if a dog's even in the room.
Right.
Or if somebody always came up behind them and hit the back of their head, then when they feel somebody behind them, they flinch. Even if it's 20 years later, they've just learned that that's their trauma response. Right.
And also the caveat, it's not always external. It could be like an emotional thing, emotional neglect. Like there's a lot of different, I think a lot of times we know like physical and sexual abuse, but nobody really talks about the emotional stuff, that the emotional needs that weren't met. So that could have been traumatizing. And sometimes there are incidents that you may not even remember consciously, but your body remembers. So finish.
That's true. So as an example that's kind of related to this, there's a condition called reactive attachment disorder. And what that is sometimes, even though you probably don't, if you're like almost every human, you don't have any memories before like 18 months, right? No one remembers being 1 month old. But believe it or not, your responses from that time actually do show up. And most children, their parents and specifically their mother nurtures them when they're little, and they hug them and they get skin on skin and they can smell their mother's scent. And when they cry, the mother comes and feeds them. But what if that doesn't happen? What if instead, for whatever reason, the parent has an issue of their own, and the baby is left to cry for hours on end? I don't mean left to cry for 20 minutes to cry itself to sleep. I mean for 10 hours, right? Or they're pulled away and they're not raised. There was these Romanian orphanages where there were so many orphans that the nurses would just feed them in the crib and leave them. There was no time to hold every baby. And those children, many of them developed reactive attachment disorder. They had defective attachment for the rest of their life because the way that they attach to other human beings, it turns out that the way humans learn that is usually from their first caregiver, right? Somebody who you can rely upon. Somebody, when you say, I need help, they come and help. And if you don't get that, then it can cause severe emotional issues. Not always, but it can. So then you say being scared to ask for what I need is a trauma response. What could that possibly mean? Well, to me, the response is, if you're somebody who has an unstable relationship or has had unstable relationships in the past, where if you even set a boundary, that's it, relationship over. Or if you say, hey, I need you to let me know. Let's just say, let's say in a romantic relationship, they usually come home after work, but then one night they don't come home till 4 a.m, no call, no nothing. And then when you say, well, where were you? They go, what? You don't own me? And they go nuts on you. Then they're it's so traumatic and scary because you spent all that time worried that they're dead. Then when they show up, they just try to act like nothing happened. And then they go nuts on you when you bring it up. And then what you learn is, oh, I get it. Even asking for it. Hey, next time before you go, if you're going to stay out 9 hours later than you usually do, please let me know because I'm worried about you. Instead, your trauma response is just to not ask. I'm not even going to ask for this thing that I want or need to know because I'm flinching from that the way I said the person who got bit by a dog flinches from a dog. What do you think about that, Celeste?
I think that's good. And for people that are listening to this and may find some form of like you relate to this idea of you do find yourself struggling, it's important to note that, like, I always tell people that sometimes we struggle with how we are. It's kind of like, what's wrong with me? Why am I so scared to ask for what I need? Or why am I so scared to do X, Y, and Z? It's really important to remember that the way you are is because you had to survive certain situations. And sometimes, like, you have not been able to identify what that was. A lot of times we dissociate to survive certain situations. And so your mind is protecting you by going into that fight or flight response. One of the things that's important to note is that human beings are the only species that activate that flight or fight response with our own thoughts. And so I talk a lot about mindfulness because if you're able to be mindful of like where you are right now in the moment, even if you feel like you're a feeling that's familiar from the past, like being frightened. This book I'm reading, Oprah said when she was in the boardroom, 40 years old, she remembers being so terrified at her own Harpo Studios to tell somebody something. And over the years, she's learned that her trauma response is she's a people pleaser. And she did that because she had to survive. So I think that it's really important to understand that as you're trying to get out of those like habits that you've created of survival, be patient with yourself, and know like saying no or creating boundaries or asking for what you need is going to feel hard. There's no way around that. I always tell people like we struggle with change because it's hard. But I promise you, if you work on the change and know that it's going to be uncomfortable, eventually it'll be like blinking your eye. It'll be second nature. But initially it is going to be hard. There's no way around that because you're trying to change the way you've always been.
Right. And so in that tweet, the person said, I used to think I had this trauma response and I was frightened to ask for what I need because I hate rejection, but it's something deeper because I literally be frightened. And so hate and rejection is it's one thing to say, hey, give me a call if you're going to be late. And then the person just goes, I don't think I will. What if I feel like it? That would be rejection. Right? They go, no, I'm not doing that. Okay. That's one thing. But it's another thing if it's not just being afraid of rejection, it's maybe afraid of escalation, right? That this is going to become a whole thing, which is different from, hey, could you stop doing that? And the person goes, well, I like doing that. Versus, could you stop doing that? What did you say to me? I'll kill you. Right? What did you say to me? We'll never speak again. We have a feud now that will last an eon. So, people develop these different, one thing people learn to do is just live with things that they don't like because they haven't experienced healthy conflict. And the only conflict that they know is dangerous, traumatic conflict.
Yeah, you will literally go. You could be like I think Oprah, when I was reading the book, when she's like, "This is my own studio," and I was terrified. So it's not there's not a threat literally in front of you, but that emotion. That's why me and Jeff talks a lot about emotional responses, because it can be so overwhelming that you really end up responding from it. So really kind of paying attention to those emotions and reminding yourself that you're okay and that you're safe, because a lot of times, I don't know with this tweet, but it sounds like generally they're just afraid. I hate rejection, and they realize it's something deeper. So yeah, that's good. Anything else you want to add?
No, I like that. I like that the person who responded, they recognized that there's some kind of issue, and they wanted to learn more. And I think that's there's something called the pre-contemplative state. That's where you're not even considering that you have a problem. You see, with people who are getting into drug addiction and they're just straight up at I can stop anytime I want. Okay, then why don't you stop right now? I don't want to. That's the pre-contemplative state, right? But this person, I like young tender. Right? I like that they're in a space where they're looking and saying, you know what? I think I got a problem here. I don't know what it's from or what it is, but I know this isn't ideal. And that's where you got to get if you want to make change.
And what's dope is that this person, it was just a tweet. And that's why I'm this just happened to be a tweet that this person related to. But when we're surrounding ourselves and really leaning into things that that can help us, it can really shift our thought process, right? Because it happens over time. It's not when you get that aha moment, it's not because that one thing is the reason why. It's everything before that, all the things you've been doing to work on yourself. So yeah, it's a daily process, which is really important to remember. Okay, our next question. I'm having a hard time as an entrepreneur. You are always discussing discipline. How do you stay motivated? Because I have been watching you. Looks like you never stop. I laughed when I seen this because I stopped. Girl, boy, I stopped. So as far as me, and Jeff is also an entrepreneur, I'll let him answer on his own. I am not always motivated at all. Sometimes I'm not motivated to pop on the podcast, but when I start, it's fine. I think what keeps me in a disciplined state of mind is my goals and just me creating commitment to doing what I say I'm going to do. And it's in front of me. It's somewhere where I can see it. When I wake up in the morning, I don't always feel like waking up in the morning, but I have these goals in mind. I want to work on my mood. I want to work on my health. And I think a lot of times we have these goals. You could be yeah, I want to be healthy or whatever it is, but it's in your mind. And like we just said in the last question, in our mind sometimes could be so convoluted with so much stuff that it gets jumbled up and it ends up in the back of your mind. And you forget what those goals are because life is happening. So life keeps happening for me. But I definitely I create a routine, I create a system, which is why I talk about it a lot. Sometimes people think that they'll be like, oh, well, it's easy for you. And I'll be like, no, it's not easy for me. It's not. But I definitely am somebody that When I put my mind to something and I say I'm going to do it, I'll do it. And that way of living is available to us all. It's not unique to Celeste or Jeff, and I'll let Jeff answer. As an entrepreneur, what kind of hurdles do you go into, or how do you keep some motivation?
Well, I can say that, and this question encapsulates both the words here, because it says always discussing discipline, then jumps right to how do you say motivated. But the thing is, motivated, that's like that fleeting feeling. Particularly when you're little, you go watch a movie about, let's say you go watch the Ninja Turtles and they've been jump kicking and doing flips. And then when you walk out of the movie theater, you start jump kicking and you say, I'm going to learn karate. I'm going to go take a karate class. In that moment, if you could become a black belt in a night, you would do it. But you don't become a black belt in a night. Really, the people that become black belts, they go to karate class for years and study and practice, and they skip fun things and they do things they don't want to do and they don't watch Ninja Turtles every day. Even if they did, it would wear off. That wouldn't work.
Well, a side note, when I was younger, I watched Ninja Turtles on the tape, the VHS. I know I always go into my old grandma moments, but VHS, I used to watch Ninja Turtles and Karate Kid all the time. Rewind it, play. Go ahead.
And that's why you're a black belt now. But the game within the game is discipline, is about deciding. And Celeste said this: you decide what you're going to do, and then you do it regardless of how you feel. So the decision is not made. Let's say you say, I'm going to go to the gym every day. Let's just say you say that. You don't make the decision to go to the gym at gym time. You made it 3 months ago when you said, I'm going to go to the gym every day at 9. That's when you made it. There's no decision to be made now. I'm just going to the gym. I'm doing what I decided to do before. I don't every day decide to go to the gym. No. Right. I decided, oftentimes that's how I think of it. The truth is, I love my work and I love helping people. But oftentimes, right before I'm about to hop on a Zoom or go to a meeting or whatever it is, I don't want to. The truth is, although I love doing this show, I was watching Blackish right before we was doing this, and there's something more fun about watching Blackish. I just get to sit there and watch it, and it's funny. But I said I would do this show, right? And it never crossed my mind to fake internet issues or whatever it is and not show up today, because I decided, when me and Celeste agreed, we'll do it on the 20th. At that moment, that's when the choice was made. And now I just obey the choice, right? And then feeling follows action. Now, am I thirsty to shut this off and go watch Blackish? No, I'm good now. But for that little while, I just wanted to be a lazy bastard. And it's the discipline is just making these decisions and sticking to them and not listening to your feelings. I never feel like doing anything but eating candy and having sex and going to sleep and playing video games. That's the only thing I feel like doing. But I do a lot because I do what I've decided to do, not what I feel like doing.
Absolutely. And, for people, whether you're an entrepreneur or not, because this is a struggle people have in general, not just as an entrepreneur. This person just happens to be one. Just remember, you already have these habits. Sometimes they're unhealthy habits, but you have a lot of habits and things that you're consistent at doing. So it's not about your lack of being able to be consistent. It's a lack of being able to be. It's your mentality around being consistent around the things that's going to help you move forward in life. Or sometimes there's fear with success of the unknown, and so you sometimes are habitually stepping in your own way, or surviving. You get up for work when you don't feel like it for that 9 to 5. And that's something okay, I absolutely could do things past my feeling. I just have to learn how to take that same mindset and put it to my goals and the things that I say that I want to do. Does that part make sense?
It does. And that's, I tell my staff, right? So I'm a pretty easygoing boss in many ways.
Really, you are?
In many ways, I am. But in one specific way, I don't care how you get it done. Okay. I don't care if you say, I worked at 3:00 last night instead of during the day or whatever it is. I was so tired I had to take a nap. I don't care. As long as when we have deadlines, the deadlines are non-negotiable. We don't miss any deadlines. We don't fail to email people back or call them back. And we don't no call, no show. We don't do anything like that. Every single commitment we've made, we keep it because those decisions are made. And if you can do that, then you'll be in the top 10% of all reliable people, because it seems like most people can't do that.
Yeah.
Most people don't. They don't.
Okay.
They
Yeah,
can
they
do it,
don't.
Celeste, but they
You
won't.
can.
So
Yeah.
that's the secret, and that's how you become more like Celeste.
Oh, please cut it out. This is similar to the previous question, so I'm just putting it up. But what can I do to build consistency? One thing I tell people is to try to start with something that they're already doing and implement small habits into that routine. So like I always start with just making up your bed. I say, if you want to work on some consistency, just work on like making up your bed. It's not some people could quit cigarettes cold turkey, but it's not, the average person takes a while. When you're trying to build healthy, consistent habits in your life, don't be like, I have this wellness wheel that I talk about a lot, different areas of your life. You can't change all areas. Like financial wellness is like the last on the totem pole that I've been really like muddling through. But I've worked on different areas. I took it in little chunks. And it's really important to know that everything's not going to change overnight. Right. So be patient with yourself. I know it's like when you like, I just want to change, especially now. I think there's something in the air around the beginning of the new year where and just so we're clear for people who have this energy around the new year, it's because everybody's talking. You're in that movie and you was like, yep, I'm going to learn karate because you're in that environment. Gym memberships are selling, people are selling their packages for all of this clarity stuff. And so, you're seeing it all the time. Next month, we're going to be seeing a bunch of hearts and Valentine's Day and love stuff. So just know that if you're trying to build consistency, try to start small, be patient with yourself and implement it with something you're already doing. And don't start something at night. Like, don't be like, I want to read 10 minutes a day. And then like right before bed, you're more likely you're going to be like, I'll do it tomorrow. So yeah, just be mindful of that. You have any thing you want to say about this question?
Well, it definitely feeds into it, or it's related to the last one of how to have discipline, and it's also what you were talking about, building slow. So meaning you're probably not going to quit smoking, lose weight, get a new job, and repaint your whole house in the same week.
Right.
You know what I mean? Ideally, you kind of add things in slowly, right? And you slowly start to cobble together. It's like a juggler first throwing up one ball, and then when he's really got that going, you add in a second, and then a third, and then you know what I mean? So it's the same idea. So you make one thing second nature, and then you can add in another thing and so forth. So, because again, that's how your life is built right now. Right? That's how you get into the habits that you're in right now. They didn't all start in one day. So you're not going to start all new habits. But, like if you said like, okay, well, I'm going to make sure I get up every morning, no more sleep until noon. Right. And if you said that, then you go, okay, all I'm focused on this week is that I'm going to get to bed. If I'm going to wake up at 8, then I got to get to bed by, let's say 11. And you just, that's what I'm going to do. And for the next 10 days, if I have been in bed by 11 every night, then I have whooped life's ass. Mm-hmm. I'm not thinking about all the other things yet. It's just mastering that. Then when the sleep schedule's in, okay, next thing, when I get up, I'm going to go for a jog before I even eat breakfast. Then you start jogging and kind of adding them in like that until you've rebuilt yourself. And I picked 10 days. Really, a lot of the data shows that probably takes something more like 6 weeks for something to be an established habit. But 6 weeks starts with 10 days. Starts with 1 day.
It starts with 1 day. Yeah, that's good. My longtime listeners, I use this example all the time, but there was really a time where I was like going to the gym and trying to lose weight, but after the gym, I was going to Burger King because I was like, yo, I just worked out. Like I didn't think it was a big deal.
Right? You just earned it, and that's actually called particularly in morals, but you can use it even in that context, called moral licensing. Moral licensing. So they did a study and found out, for example, that people that worked at like a charity shop stole more out of the register. People that volunteered at a charity shop stole more out of the register than people who worked at Target. Why?
Really?
Because I'm donating all this time to this charity shop. The least they can do is buy me a cup of coffee.
Oh, okay.
Right? Whereas when they work at Target, you're trading your money for your time, and you don't feel that moral licensing.
That makes sense.
So Celeste was going, I did all that time on the Stairmaster. You better give me that number 8.
Yeah, so and I was heavy into the Whoppers back in the day, and that was my thing. Extra mayonnaise and onion, baby. Anyways, my point I was trying to make was that
extra mayonnaise, add extra fat, please.
When I realized I wasn't changing because of the Burger Kings after the gym, I was like, oh shoot, let me just eat healthy. Man, your girl went out and got all this healthy food. That stuff rotted in the refrigerator. Because I couldn't, I was eating unhealthy breakfast, lunch, and dinner. So What I did, I started with breakfast. And then I did that for a while. I had patience with myself. So it's just with anything we do, that's a more tangible, external thing I can point out. But there's a lot of internal things that you may be trying to work through, and just take it one day at a time and one situation at a time. That's how it works. To clarify, I don't crave consistency. Consistency makes me stressed.
Well, then why do you want it? That's the question. Why would you want? So your problem is you're saying you don't just want consistency. You want to want it. You don't currently want it, right? You think there's some benefit. There may be some degree of benefit to it, and there's also a cost. First off, it stresses you out. I can say for myself, Shep, I can say for myself that I'm not someone who goes to bed at the same time every night, even though I know that there's studies and stuff that state that, getting to bed by 10:30 is good for you. I must admit, I really like the night. I just like it. So I get to bed earlier than I used to. For most of my teens and 20s, I really stayed up till 4 or 5 o'clock every single night. Okay, I really did. Now it's really more like 2 o'clock, which sounds late to a lot of people, but to me, that's actually I've solved it. And sometimes I go to bed at 1:30, on purpose, which is something I never was able to do. So some people are I'm in bed, some army sergeant. I'm in bed every night by 9, but that guy's living my nightmare. So I can't necessarily just become a different person. I'm a night owl.
Right.
You know what I mean? But I can do what works for me. And for me, I need to consistently get enough sleep. Not I need to be consistently in bed by 10. You can look at anything like that.
That makes sense. Okay, I just want to put this person's question up before I go to the next one that's wrote in. How can a person learn to not look at kind acts of kindness from others as a form of manipulation? This feels like it goes into our first question around the trauma response, right? Is that what you're thinking?
Flashed to my mind too. So
I know we great minds think alike.
True.
Go ahead. You can go ahead and
all right. Well, you say, how can I learn? So it sounds like you already know it, and it's not really intellectual. It's emotional, right? In other words, it's not as though you have a philosophy where you go, I sat down and did the calculations and realized that there's no such thing as altruism. And in fact, every action is in fact an attempt to extract value from me in excess of the value provided to me. That's not what the calculation Terrell's making, I don't think. Instead, Terrell can intellectually recognize that someone's doing something not to manipulate him, but he feels like there's a catch, right? He feels like so you're instinctively suspicious, but I say instinctively, that sounds like it's genetic, when in fact it's probably closer to a trauma response, right? Perhaps you had a relationship, maybe even just one relationship, where when someone did something for you, like if they said, Celeste, you look great today. Have you lost weight? The minute they say that, they're going to ask to borrow money, because that's what they do. They butter people up. And so one thing to do might be to try to, and when people do that, they do what's sometimes called an overcorrection. So in other words, just like if I'm scared of dogs biting, most dogs that I've met in life don't bite me. But because one did, I overcorrected and learned the lesson too well. I learned that all dogs are savage monsters, when in fact, the real lesson's more like, be careful around dogs. Some bite, some don't. People are the same way. There's people that will do nice things for Terrell because they're trying to squeeze juice out of Terrell. And there's other people who just want to see Terrell happy. So here's the game within the game. If you want to know who's who, there's a strategy in life that's called reciprocal altruism. Another word for it is tit for tat. And here's how it works. When you first engage with somebody, you proactively do something nice for them. I don't mean buy them flowers, but for example, at a certain point, Celeste must have said, hey, do you want to come on my show? She didn't say, I'm going to pay you a lot of money, or, the groupie, there's so many groupies afterwards. Instead, she just said, do you want to come on the show? And I say yes. And then we start so the first, this is kind of hypothetical because I don't actually remember this, but the first person who does something, let's say, is me. I say, yes, I'll come on your show. I come on the show. We have a good talk. Then she says, hey, do you need this? And we start an exchange. Basically, me and Celeste just do nice things for each other, right? And I don't get the sense that she's doing it in order to extract anything from me, but I also don't feel taken advantage of in any way because we do things for each other. And no one's really keeping track, but we just know overall, sometimes she picks up dinner, sometimes I pick up dinner, but we have a good relationship. We have a relationship that's built on reciprocal altruism. Sometimes you'll meet somebody who the only time they do something nice for you is when they want something back. Or if you do something for them, they just ask for twice as much next time and they never do anything. And those people, you don't have to fist fight them, but you basically say tit for tat. I'm not, one way or the other, in your own mind, you might say, I'm not doing nothing else for you until you pay me back for last time. Right? And if you do a tit for tat strategy in life, you'll accumulate more and more Celestes, which is to say more and more people who you have reciprocal altruism relationships with. And if you meet someone who's trying to beat you, they'll only beat you once. And that's the strategy. And it works in both directions. If someone does something nice for you, try to do something else nice for them. Hopefully they do something nice for you. You got one more ally in life. And if you do that, that's basically the secret to how do you not be an asshole in a world full of assholes.
Yeah, that's good. And I had your problem, Tara. I feel like I don't think I just put everybody in the same bowl. And because I am who I am, I just, I think I just assumed that why can't everybody be this way? And I think the reality is that everybody is not the same. Everybody comes from different cloths. So it's important. I just want to make one comment about what Jeff said that's important, because Jeff said it could have been a bunch of people that could have created manipulation. It could have just been one relationship that just stuck out more. And sometimes, people may not even remember specifically, but again, the body keeps the score. And so it goes into this protection mode, be careful, Celeste is trying to manipulate you again. And so it sucks when that happens, because then sometimes we miss out on opportunity, or we miss out on real authentic relationships. I hear this a lot in my sessions, where people are trying, especially at our mid-20s, 30s, and you're trying to figure out friendships and all that other stuff. It's kind of challenging because you have probably been burnt in the past. And sometimes as people are trying to build, they go into this isolation thing, but then they say I want more friends. But then I'm well, what are you doing? So that's important, that it could just have been one situation that kind of gotten you stuck.
Right. Even in terms of building friends and making relationships, being able to accept help, being able to accept kindness from others is actually essential. It's not ideally that you would give to everyone and no one would give to you. People like giving to you. As an easy example, Terrell, if somebody throws you a surprise birthday party, they do want something from you. They want you to be happy, right? At a very minimum. Maybe they're also buttering you up to ask for a big loan. But let's say a lot of people, they would just want you to be happy. And so the idea that you have skepticism or mixed feeling, or I told you don't throw me no party, and you storm out, right? That's actually you messing up. Because in actuality, you're supposed to go, oh my God, you're such a good friend. Oh my God, baby, you're such a good girlfriend. That's what they wanted. And so if you become the kind of person that can't accept kindness from others, then you'll train them not to be kind to you. And then you'll say, it'll be self-fulfilling, because you say, see, people are pieces of shit. When in fact, you've trained all the people that want to be nice to you, don't ever do it, because Terrell Bell don't want it. So don't be like that.
Thank you, Terrell. Okay. How come it's not showing the question? Oh, so the next question says, do women think they are inadequate after being single for so long?
I haven't been a woman for for most of my life. So what do you say, Celeste?
So I'll say this, that I think that when women are single, from my experience, let me just start with from my experience, because I don't want nobody writing and be you categorizing people. From my experience, I haven't been single for a long time, so I'm not talking about my personal experience, but just my experience as a therapist. People do start to look at themselves and their value when they're single. And I think the reason why this happens is because in America and other cultures too, we put a lot of emphasis on being in a relationship as part of success. And so, you can't create a healthy person or a healthy partner to be with if they're not there, especially with this pandemic. We're going on 2 years. The opportunity to meet new people is kind of scarce if you're not into the whole app life. And so lately, I feel like a lot of people have been talking about relationships and being single. And so I think they will feel inadequate. And when this happens in my role as a therapist, I work on reminding women who they are. I honestly I haven't heard this from men. I'm just I'm not saying men don't have emotions or nothing like that. I've just never heard a man that I've worked with or whatever like feel like, oh, I'm inadequate because I don't have a partner. But I think a lot of it just has to do with the societal pressures. And I want to steer away from saying that society puts on us and more so that we allow society. And I say that, and I do know it's everywhere, especially with Valentine's Day coming up. I want to say it that way because I want people to see their power. And so like, obviously, I've been married for almost 14 years. So I know people like, oh, well, Celeste, you're married. So I'm like, I'm clear that I'm married and I don't have this issue. But I do feel that society does put a lot of pressure on we allow society to put pressure on us to like kind of be in a relationship and look at that as a thing of success. What's your thoughts?
I think all that makes sense. I don't think we can generalize. I think that there are so certainly relationships, men and women are treated differently in terms of how they interact with mates, and by that I mean that, of course, a man who, let's say, like Hugh Hefner, right, who has a lot of women and isn't necessarily in a relationship, he's like that's like good, like you're a good man, like you're good at being a man for that, right? A woman, you would not be good at being a woman for that same situation, right? However you feel, society would not give you high points for a woman who has a rotating cast of men, but no strong ties to any of them. On the other hand, when men and women are single, the woman is oftentimes looked at as like, okay, then, like you'd be better if you had a mate. Like that's more of an achievement than not having one. Men, if they can convince people that they are Hugh Hefner in their private life, then that will be good. But if they're actually sitting at home with nobody, then and if people know that, then that's low too. So in other words, men can feel inadequate because women aren't attracted to them, but they're more easily able to mask it because they can perhaps imply that they're Hugh Hefner and they have all these sneaky links that you don't know about, right? But each one can feel inadequate if in actuality they're in a dry spell. That being said, something that you see as much or certainly frequently as well are people who, rather than feeling inadequate, sometimes I think their expectations might actually be too high, and that might be defensive or trauma response, meaning they're single because no one is good enough for them, right? And you see that a lot too. And sometimes I wonder, I think there's people in that category, and I think there's women in that category who literally just are looking for a thing that's pretty uncommon. And then I think there are other people who are, I don't know if everyone remembers the Fresh Prince where Hillary's fiance dies, and then she goes on a date. I think it was like with Will's professor, and as long as she's dating Will's professor, Will's getting good grades. But then she rejects the professor because she says his Adam's apple's too big. But in reality, that's a Fresh Prince. Celeste, you seem like someone who watched the Fresh Prince, but it was.
I did, but I don't remember the episode. But okay. I believe you.
But what Hillary was really doing was she wasn't ready to move on. Her fiance died, whatever it is. She couldn't really move on, so she was trumping up some reason, right? Because she was scared to be intimate. So I don't think you can generalize to this one thing. Do women think they're inadequate after being single so long? Some do, some don't, and it's not necessarily even all women. But that's one of the things that can happen because, of course, what Celeste was talking about, people have that expectation that if I'm so great, then why does nobody love me? Right. So I guess I could take from that, maybe I'm not so great. And I think it's tough. I think pairing up is tough, particularly because many people don't have even the baseline skills it takes to make a relationship work. And they think that relationships are like TV and the movies, where when you meet the right person, it'll be obvious and automatic and it won't be hard. When in reality, Celeste, you've been married for 14 years and the whole thing's been a honeymoon. Is that right?
Absolutely not.
Right.
I'd be ready to kill him and go to jail and lock up the key. And I'm sure he feels the same way.
Right. Literally, like you're approaching like 4,000 days. You got over 4,000 days of being married. That's even without just the relationship, just marriage, 4,000 days. And yet, sometimes you're like, dog, pick up your socks. Like it's so frustrating. Or like, you cook all day, you do all that. He goes, get me a drink. And you go, I'll tell you what, I'll get you a hatchet in the back of your neck. I'm not getting you nothing. And so doing that work. So in other words, some people, they think the problem is they're inadequate in terms of they're unlovable. But in reality, the expectations that a relationship is easy and simple are making them lonelier than they otherwise would be.
Yeah, I agree. And the idea of this, I think people look at relationships like a feeling, like that they feel like usually the first, I say 3 months, but now it's getting the window smaller. It used to be 3 months, but it's like a week or two. People ain't giving people time anymore. You feel this like good feeling, and then it kind of goes away. But it's an emotion that comes and goes. So go ahead. You wanted to say something?
Well, no. Some people think, and I think the data is mixed on this. They think that it's the paradox of choice, right? So in other words, as long as, let's say, Tinder or Christian Mingle is on my phone, looking up for better people is always a swipe away. And so you get that idea, that the pain of when like there's 3 good parties on a night, and whichever party you're at, all you can think about is, I wonder, is the other party better? Right. But if that one party was the only party, you just be glad that you were there and you just be dancing and drinking and having fun, but you're not calling the other one. Hey, who's over there? What's happening over there? What's popping? I might go through. You try to go to all the things. Some people, the thinking is that some people treat relationships the same way, in that as long as people are sliding in your DMs, you look at every time your mate does something you don't like, someone else is a phone call away. The data on that is not so clear, but that's one. If that resonates with anyone, then think about that. Or you ever had the pain? Excuse me. You go to a hip ice cream shop that has so many flavors that it's hard to know which one to pick.
Yeah.
But if it was just like the ice cream truck and they just said, look, you want vanilla soft serve, chocolate soft serve, or swirl, because that's what you're going to get. Yeah. It actually makes it easier. Yeah. And so that's one issue that we faced that our grandparents didn't. They had choices, but not like this.
Yeah. That's so true. And think about like, what is it that you want? A lot of times when I'm working with people and they're talking about relationships, and I'm like, a lot of times they don't really know what they want. Sometimes it's kind of like all men are dogs, but they want to be in a relationship. So really being mindful of what you're telling yourself. Are you grouping your like a potential mate in the category because of a bad experience, the trauma response? That's crazy how this first question feels like it leads into like a lot of other things that we tend to talk about. But like, is it a trauma response to like loop people in because you've had a bad experience? Like, I don't think one species is all bad. And I really hate when I see those kind of posts about when typically, well, no, actually I see it with women too. Men will put women in a category, women will put men in a category. And that's not the case at all. Like, you can't put everybody into one category.
Reductive, right? Mm-hmm. What's this question?
All right. So I know, right? Your analogies is so good. Hey, Jerry. Okay. Sorry. Let me just go back to this banner. All right. So, because I want to get through these questions, we got like a few minutes. Can you discuss outgrowing friendships and grief afterwards?
Well, when you think about outgrowing friendships, so let's take this. So let's say in this case, nothing happened. They didn't sleep with your boyfriend or steal from your house. Instead, it's literally, you just realize like, damn, we're diverging. And I love you, like I loved you before, but our lives aren't compatible like they once were. Some places where this happens is if one person becomes like a parent. Sometimes that can happen for good, right? We used to go out and do certain things together. We were our going out friends, and we would go out or we would talk about what happened when we went out. And then someone has a toddler, and they just, even if they have babysitting, I'm just out of juice. I get my hair done twice a year now. I'm not going out. I'm not doing what we used to do. I can't do it. Or you bet you're friends with somebody, you went to school together, and then you're friends all through that, and then you even keep in touch through college. Then you get jobs in such different sectors, and who you are takes shape. And it's just not the same, man. You're just not you have different core axioms. You literally believe different stuff. I think that's natural, and you can certainly, the grief afterwards, you mourn that. You say, we used to be connected like a 10. There was a time we were college roommates and we were connected like a 10. And now we're connected. Most of what connects us is our history. And it hurts. You know what I mean? At the same time. And you'll never have something. I said, I was talking the other day about somebody, how I wouldn't sell, like Celeste, I'm telling you this right now. If an evil genie came to me and said like, yo, I'll give you $1 billion, but you got to ruin Celeste. You got to she's going to get fired from her job and she's going to lose her license to practice, but you get $1 billion. I wouldn't do it. And the reason why I wouldn't do it is because, you're never going to, relationships are so valuable, right? And it ain't, I'll just do a show with another therapist. There may never be another therapist who you enjoy doing a show with like Celeste. It's worth more than $1 billion in a lot of ways. I mean that. And so, yeah, high school friend, Jeff Bezos can never have a new high school friend. He's Jeff Bezos, but he can't do it. He has $200 billion, but he can never meet anyone again before he was a 200 billionaire. He never can. And so I say all that to say that's how valuable relationships are. And the pain of it is mourning that closeness, but at the same time, things have a season. You know what I mean? And sometimes it doesn't mean that you don't have love. You didn't necessarily do something wrong. It's rather understanding that was good while it lasted, and now it has to move on to at least its new form, like a caterpillar to a butterfly, whatever. We can't be like we were, but we can still be something. But it do hurt.
Yeah. And I love that this person used grief. I use grief a lot of times when I'm talking about changes in relationships. I wish this wasn't such a common thing, but this is such a common thing that comes up in my sessions with people. And I think it's because it's not normalized that things have seasons. And you look at girlfriends, you even look at Insecure. Issa and what the girl Molly, they got back to the way they were. That doesn't always happen when there's friction or one person's growing and the other person's not growing. And so I think it's really important to normalize being okay with letting people go that no longer serve you. And when I say letting them go, it's not like you're X, we're not talking anymore. But it's not the same. We're not hanging out the way we were before. We're not doing XYZ, especially if you're working on your healing journey. Some people's relationships are built around trauma or built around we're just talking about things that are happening in our lives. So I'm a shit show. Everything's all kind of like Molly and Insecure. If you didn't watch it, if you've built a relationship off of somebody, but just talking about all the trauma that you're going through, and then you change up your narrative, right? You start to see you got power. That relationship that you've been in with your friend, it may not look the same. And so you may feel friction or may feel uncomfortable, but it's because you're I don't want to really be in that negative space. Not that the person's a negative person, but the things that they want to talk about or do is negative, and you just aren't in that space anymore. So it's really important to understand that it's okay that you're growing, and think about quality over quantity. Like Jeff says, when he values our relationship, and as I value my relationship with him, I've had more, I say quote unquote, friends growing up, that I thought they were, but now there's a lot less people in my life. But the quality, the impact and the dynamic, it just looks a lot different.
You got better at being you. Remember when you were a kid and you would buy clothes because they look good on other people? And then as you get older, if you smarten up, you realize Jeff, that looks great on that slim 6'4" guy, but on you, it looks crazy. So do what looks good on you. Friends is that same way. Like this, everyone loves this person and they're popping. But for me, they're not that great. And you just slowly, it's not an attack on them. It's literally just compatibility.
Yeah. And then I'll say that Terrell, how do you be vulnerable with somebody that you care about without the fear of them leaving after you've expressed your feelings? Wait, before that, I just want to put this up really quick. It's hard to find people that I'm aligned with. Therefore, I hang around unmotivated people, and it seems as I am always trying to raise them higher. I almost feel like I'm parenting what to do. And so, Jerry, this goes into our point of like, sometimes like the people no longer serves you anymore. And it says, I am hanging around them. You're choosing to hang around them. And the idea of not hanging out with somebody and being by yourself is very hard and scary when you're not used to it. And I think that's why people's like, you know what, I'll stick in this in the stuff that I know than to be alone and try to like be alone, because that doesn't feel good. But I promise you that might be a better option. It won't feel like it's better, but it's a better option. Isn't that fair to say, Jeff?
It is. And let me say, so I'll tell you a story quick that's hard for people to maybe imagine.
And then Terrell, I'll go back to your question. I just skipped it because Jerry's was in line with what we were just talking about. Sorry.
So years ago, it's maybe hard to imagine now, but I was, I wanted to be in music, right? And I wanted to be a record producer. And, but I didn't have a studio or nothing like that. But me and my boy would both talk about it all the time. Like, all right, dog, we're going to save up. You're going to save up, right? Yeah, we'll save up. We'll each save up whatever money. I don't know. We'll try to save up $600 each. And then we'll buy a beat machine. We didn't really know. It was like, I don't know, 1999. We'll buy a beat machine. And every month we talk about it on the phone. Yo, did you do it? Yeah, I did it. Yeah, I did it. All right, word. We're almost there. Yo, we're at 800. We just got to get to 1,200. Celeste can see what's going to happen here. I can see it in her face. And the day came, and I said, all right, we got it. We got $1,200. We're going to go buy an MPC. And he said, I ain't got it, dog. I ain't got it. And I was like, oh, what? He said, oh, well, my, this and that happened. I got caught up in the pipeline and the way my credits and debits is set up. And I love that dude, and I still love him, but that hurt me. And it took me years after that to get equipment, but I got it myself. I realized after that I just wanted someone to go on that journey with me, Jerry, but nobody would. From where I was, there was no one ready to go on that journey. We're on this island trying to build a boat to get off, but I was the only one that really wanted to build the boat. I started to suspect maybe people like this island. They just like talking about getting off the island. They like talking about the boat, but they're not willing to actually do it. So I built the boat myself. I finally built the little beat machine. I bought it. I didn't know how to use it. I didn't know how to do nothing. I didn't have a car, but I spent $3,000 on this. It's called a Triton, right? It's the same keyboard that Pharrell and from the Neptunes used at the time. $3,000. I don't have a car, but I got a $3,000 Triton. You could buy a car for $3,000 in 1999, but I did it. And then I met people that was doing music too. And they said, oh, you got a Triton? I got a Motif. And we started hooking up that way. And what I learned is you got to get on the journey first, and then you'll meet the people on the way. It's like the Wizard of Oz. Dorothy only met the Tin Man, the Lion, the Scarecrow because she was walking that road. She didn't meet anyone that stuck with her where she landed. She had to get on the journey first. So, Jerry, tough break. Those people aren't going with you. You got to go. And then the people that are going to go where you're trying to go, you'll meet them on the way.
Dang, that's mad dope. Like, you will meet them. And I said, and what Jeff's analogy is literally how my life has transformed. Not because like I was like, oh, I want to change. Like, here, where are the people that help me change? I was alone like for a long time. And so like that's the part people see the product, but they don't see the journey. But I'm a very transparent person and talk about my journey. And so it's really important to understand that. On this journey of trying to heal and trying to develop yourself and own your power, that it's going to feel lonely. It's going to feel sucky, as my kid would say. But over time, you'll get to where you're trying to be. How do you be vulnerable with someone that you care about without the fear of them leaving after you've expressed your feelings?
Oh, my guy Terrell got a lot of. Terrell, do you realize the link between this and the last question? Right. So how do you feel?
We on the same
Right.
page.
How do you feel vulnerable with someone you care about without fear of them leaving you after your feelings? Terrell, the last question had a lot to do with vulnerability too, right? And has to do a lot with trust. Has to do with trusting people to like and care about you, instead of if they do something for you, it's because they want something. And if you tell them who you really are, they will abandon you, right? So when you say, how do you be vulnerable with someone? The truth of the matter is that you, to some degree, have to do it first and accept. And I don't even promise you that they'll never leave. First of all, because a lot of people leave it. We just talked about how friends can sometimes be for a season. Clearly, relationships can be for a season. So I don't promise you that if you share with someone, that means they'll always stay. But what you have to be able to do is understand that, like, look, to have the kind of, because clearly you want to do this. If you really were the Terminator inside, you wouldn't write this question, or you wouldn't be listening to a relationship podcast, because you'd be thinking to yourself, I don't need that. I'm ice cold. But deep down, you know the truth, which is you want to be vulnerable, but you're worried that if you do so, you'll tank the relationship. And I think being authentic just feels better. It just feels better. Being authentic is like wearing shoes that fit, and being inauthentic is like jamming your whole personality into something that just doesn't fit. And so you be authentic with the person, and you accept that this is you, and they'll take you or they'll leave you. But I think oftentimes people respect authenticity. Don't you, Terrell? Don't you respect people that are authentic? Don't you admire that? Like, think about, like, Rick Ross got more money than DMX, but think about how people love DMX, right? Think about how they loved him because of his authenticity. It seemed like DMX was being real. People love that about that guy. Are you real like that? You could be, but you got to put yourself out there like DMX did. Mm-hmm. So be more like DMX.
Mm-hmm. I'm gonna get to this last question, and then this will be the last question, so that and the rest we can do next time. That's what happens when I take a month off, right? Okay, so I am struggling. Oh, wait, hold on. I'm struggling with confidence. What are some ways I can help build up my confidence and self-esteem? I'm struggling.
Well, thanks, Jerry. So here's what I'll say about having confidence, whatever it is. So
that's a huge thing.
It's a huge thing. It's a huge thing. And I think the thing is, if you realize, really, if you sit back and realize what you've, like, basically, I look at it in terms of a way like earn it for yourself. Some people will say to you, they'll say, just know that you're perfect how you are. And I don't love that, to be honest with you. That never worked for me. Here's what I like better.
Why does that not work for people? Because people, they really mean well when they just say, like, but you're like, perfect. Why doesn't that work when people do that? Because I know they mean well. Right.
Well, first of all, it's like, well, we know that there's my best self, my ideal self, and we know that I'm not that. So you're saying just make your ideal self the one that it already is, and you'll be fine. But it's like, yeah, that doesn't really work. I know. I have goals. I have things I want to do and be, and I'm not there. So here's something that I like, and I think this is another thing where feeling follows action. Let's imagine you pride yourself, you wanted to be good at something. You want to be good at basketball. And you think to yourself, I won't love myself until I'm Michael Jordan. But in actuality, if you go out and do the things that make you better, you go out and practice and shoot around and eat right, you'll feel better that day, because you'll know you're on the path. You know you're in the direction, right? And so you want to lose weight, you won't, it's not like all the self-esteem gets saved up until when you hit your goal weight. You'll feel better every day that you stick to your guns. That's the truth of the matter. And so if you want to feel confident, largely, you identify your best self, who it is you want to be, and then you start marching towards that. You accept that it's not going to be overnight, and that it might be an ideal. You may never perfectly get there. Everybody in the NBA wanted to be Michael Jordan, but nobody is. There's no one in the NBA right now as good as Michael Jordan is or was. No one is. But they know they showed up, they did the work, and they feel good about, like, the path that they're on, if that makes sense. And half the time, people's confidence and self-esteem is low because they're not doing that. They're not doing whatever. They spend all their energy all day doing things that have nothing to do with their goal, so they feel like shit.
Or look on and be like, oh, I wish I was like Celeste or Jeff, right? Like look at the people and not know their story or do any work, and know their journey is different from your journey and my journey.
Right. And you identify that where you want to be, your ideal self, and then you aim at that. It's a moving target. It's like walking towards the sunset, but you never actually touch the sun. Mm-hmm. But you make progress. You're going in that direction. Do you see what I'm saying? Mm-hmm. If you do that, you'll feel better.
Yeah. I always tell people, this is a really good quote, make your today better than your yesterday, not better than my yesterday, not better than Jeff's yesterday. And I promise you, when you start focusing on your small wins, like I got up and made my bed today, or I did X, Y, and Z today, those wins, like they really add up. They start to feel good. And you start to build your confidence. And so like, I think like where somebody earlier asked about my discipline and stuff, like you really got to become disciplined with what you're doing, and the confidence, your mind and body has no other choice but to fall in line with the direction that you're taking it. Right. And so I think a lot of times it's like, but I want to feel that, but you can't feel it until you take your system into that direction. And so like, you know, I go as hard as I go when I talk about self-development and talk about your power, because I struggled for a long time in so many areas, and to be here and to like feel the way I feel, I'm like, oh shit, this is available for everybody. And so like, I try to give people like insight in small doses, so that you can like really build yourself up. But the confidence thing is something that a lot of people are struggling with, especially now with so many changes that have happened in the world with this pandemic over the last 2 years, so many changes. And sometimes we don't like work on like changing as a change is happening. We stay in where we were 2 years ago, and it just doesn't work.
You gotta listen. It's incremental. But when you really, one thing that helped me in being a coach, when I really came to understand, when you understand how hard even a little bit of change is, you'll like appreciate it. People think change in the movies, someone decides to do something, then there's a montage, and then there's that other thing.
It's like an hour and a half.
It takes so much effort to change even a little bit that you need to jump for joy, right? Celeste knows that if she has a client, and they come in and they keep on talking about smoking cigarettes, whatever it is, and they want to quit smoking cigarettes, and then they come back and they say, well, I quit, I restarted, and now I quit again, and I haven't smoked in 2 days. And they used to smoke.
I'd be so
It's so amazing.
It's so
because
amazing.
You used to smoke 20 cigarettes a day.
Exactly.
Now you smoked 0 in 2 days. That's tremendous.
And Jerry, like that, to this point of what Jeff just said about the cigarettes, I think it's hard to celebrate your wins, because like if you like don't do it one day, you're like, oh, I screwed up, like blah blah blah. But it's like you're human. Like none of the changes I've made in my life has been a linear journey, like at all. Like absolutely not. It's not linear. It's all over the place. But you got to give yourself grace. There's no way that your wins are non-existent. Like that statement. Like if you was my client, you could never tell me that, because I'll be all up on you for that and start talking about all the ones. Start writing it down, right? Like one time Jeff on the podcast talked about, I don't know the question, but creating like a gratitude journal, like 3 different things every day. It's something small that's happened can really help you like shift your mindset around this idea of having a win. A win doesn't have to be grandiose. It's not like, it could just be like, I got up and I made my bed today. That's a win if you weren't making up your bed yesterday. That's huge. I don't care what I did or somebody else did. If you didn't do it yesterday and you did it today, that's a big deal.
Every day you wake up, or whatever, when you wake up or before you go to bed, you write down 3 things that you did well. And over time, you start to realize, oh, I'm doing a lot. Jerry, when you say that your wins are non-existent, I know that means you're just looking too big. I know it does.
Yep.
I know it does. Because in actuality, you're doing stuff. You know what I mean? Because life is so hard. It's really not possible to not do nothing.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And so Even if somebody said, well, they're suicidal and I wanted to kill myself last night, but then I didn't, I would say, put that in the journal, because
Absolutely.
someone else did kill themselves last night, but not you.
Absolutely.
You
Yep.
fought it and did what you had to do.
When
So
people show up to my sessions and it's I'm like, you showed up, you didn't have to come. I didn't make you come. You know what I mean? Like, there's so many things that, because our society looks at things so huge, like house, car, marriage, whatever, our culture does not celebrate small wins. And so, like, we can't align with the culture. We really have to look at ourselves and what we have going on. Because having that mindset can really change, like doing that work of like celebrating your wins. Well, it'll do something powerful to your mindset. It'll shift it so quickly, but you gotta like really like be disciplined and like really write it down. You gotta get it out on paper.
Okay, I got it for Jerry right now. So tonight's Thursday night, Jerry. So here's what I want you to do.
And Jerry, you come here a lot, so you know what I'm saying? I'm gonna be checking on you.
Tonight's Thursday night. So Thursday night, for the next 3 days, I want you to write down 3 things that you've accomplished, no matter how small. And so Thursday night, which is tonight, Friday and Saturday night, you write this down. And if you do all that, then I have one for you to do on Saturday night, which is I successfully followed through on writing this down. So that's only 8 things you had to come up with between now and Saturday, right? Things that you've accomplished. I don't mean your whole life, but like yesterday, I got up on time. I made the bus. Even I was running late, but I still made the bus. I did this. I don't care how small it is, but you write those things down, Jerry. I'm not going to be able to check it. You do it 3 days. And if you do that, you tell me, you take a little snapshot in your own heart of how you feel now. On the 3rd day, take a snapshot of how you feel, and you'll see that it makes a difference. He says he's going to do it. So let's see. All right.
Yes. Good. Thank you. This was awesome for people that are tuning in now. Thank you for being here or listening on the replay. Thank you for that and all of your support. I like you guys have really like been extremely supportive of this podcast. And I started with 1 episode. I started with 1 download. So I just kind of want to say that for people that like whatever you're trying to do, it's about starting. And I think that when you start, it may not always like look pretty, like, but just know like where your goals are and where you're trying to go. I mean, you may have to make some adjustments. I've made a ton of adjustments since I've like started like talking about mental health. So I just really hope that this episode was encouraging for you.
There you go. And Celeste, I'm going to interview you real quick for 10 seconds. When you started, did you know everything there was to know about audio production?
No.
Did you have all the equipment that you have now?
No. I'm laughing because I'm like so slow. I'm not even being funny. I'm
right.
Like,
did everyone say that's a great idea?
Absolutely not. They was like, everybody has a podcast.
Right. And the first one you put out, did thousands of people download it?
No, not
have
at all.
Thousands of people downloaded it now.
Oh my God, over 200,000.
There you go.
It's crazy. And I was thinking like, it's a lot of effort to press play on the podcast. So people really be rocking with your girl, you know? So I don't take that lightly. I get messages all the time and I'm just like extremely grateful. And you know, there's a lot of work I put in behind the scenes that nobody sees. So I, you know, whoever is like listening to this, like, don't compare your journey to my journey because I've done so much work over the years. I've been like really pushing mental health for over 10 years, like publicly. So I just kind of want, you know, I love seeing people win. Like that's just, I don't know, something about seeing people win just like warms my spirit. So that's why I keep like putting out these messages. So make sure you follow me on social media if you're not following me. Follow me on YouTube. Jeff, let them know where they can follow you. Jeff has a cool thing that he's always doing. Well, are you still doing it publicly?
What are we talking about? Hello Black Trivia?
Yeah.
We're doing them periodically now, but we do. So I'm also I'm a co-founder of Hello Black Trivia, which is what we call trivia with seasoning. Oh, there it goes right there. You can go on our website, but you know what a lot of people want Hello Black Trivia for? They want it for their company or their college or whatever it is for Black History Month. And so you could book us. I mean, you could book us 12 months a year, but I'm telling you that right now, there's no better time than right now to get your department to pony up some money so we can come and do some Hello Black Trivia at your company. So come on, let's do it. Holler at me for that. Or you can go to rogersleads.com if you want coaching, training, these kinds of things. All right. But Celeste, thank you so much for having me.
Jeff, thank you so much for being here. You're awesome. We'll do this again next month.
Let's do it. Jerry and Terrell, you can do it. I'll see y'all later.
All right. Bye. Thank you all so much for tuning in. If this is your first time tuning in, if you go to CelesteTheTherapist.com/podcast, there's like a ton of episodes. Jeff, this is something Jeff and I do on our episodes, but the majority of my episodes are me talking to somebody that's empowering other people. And the reason why I decided to do that is because I wanted to give people hope. I wanted people to know that they're not alone. And I think especially now, like what better time than now to know that you're not alone when so many people are isolated because of the pandemic. But the podcast started in July of 2018, way before the pandemic happened. And the mindset or the way that it's helping people is really needed now. So if you're finding yourself struggling, like do yourself a favor and really like give yourself what you need and start to implement it. So thank you all so much for rocking with me, and I'll talk to you later.
165 days, but I treat every day like it's my last. I'm only concerned with building on the future, 'cause I can't change my past. Positive vibes for positive lives. She just giving you that truth and shifting your mind. It's more mental than you realize. It's up to you to take control, 'cause this world is cold and negativity gon' take its toll. Now we've been told any day could be your last. I'm embracing every moment and I cherish every laugh, every smile, every hug, every kiss, every touch, every person in my life that I care about and love. But wait, maybe I'm getting too emotional. That's exactly what they say you ain't supposed to do.